The movie Lucky just premiered on Shudder on Thursday, March 4th, and Shari T and I just watched it last night. So for today's episode of Anchor's Points, Shari and I are going to be reviewing 2020's Lucky. There's a lot of Luckies. And when you go look it up on IMDb, it doesn't even come up right away. You have to do like Lucky and in parentheses.
I did see there was some sort of Harry Dean Stanton vehicle called Lucky.
Yeah. And then there's Logan Lucky, which I kind of wish we had watched that instead.
Me too.
That's not a slight to this movie. I just actually really like Logan Lucky a lot.
I really like Logan Lucky a lot too, and it might be a slight on my end.
Ooh. So Shudder had this special Shudder Day where it had a whole bunch of virtual panels, and then there was this secret premiere at the end of the day. It was like, it's a secret, and we were wondering what it was. And I remember Danny and Chris and I were kind of talking about it maybe being In Search of Darkness 2, which it wasn't. It was this movie. So Shudder chose to make this movie be its special headline event for that day. And I think for this movie, the reason why Shudder might have chosen it is because it definitely has a message. But I'm wondering...
Oh boy, does it have a message.
We're going to be talking about spoilers. If you don't have a Shudder account, you should go get one. And then you can go watch this movie. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes long. And then you can watch the rest of this video. Lucky is the second film by director Natasha Kermani. And it was actually written and stars Brea Grant. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to admit something. I actually don't know who Brea Grant is. So when you look this movie up on Rotten Tomatoes, there's a bunch of people that are like, oh, man, definitely need some more Brea Grant. Yeah, get us some Brea Grant, right? And then, like, Chris was like, oh, yeah, I love Brea Grant, right? So who the hell is this? And so I know she was in Dexter, based on IMDb, and then she was also in The Guild.
So she's been on a couple of TV shows.
Yeah.
I never watched Dexter. You did, though. Do you not remember her?
She's in, like, later seasons that I didn't get to.
Oh, okay.
And she's in a bunch of movies, too. And she's written a couple of movies, including this one.
Was she in movies other than The Guild?
The Guild is a web series, but she's in movies.
What movies is she?
Stuff that like I didn't recognize. Sorry, Brea. If you're probably watching this, I apologize. Brea. Brea Grant wrote this movie, and she plays the main character, May. May is a self-help author who lives with her husband, Ted, in this beautiful suburban house, right?
Yeah, it's pretty swanky.
Yeah,
I'm surprised she's not a gardener in the film because there are roses everywhere.
Yeah, well, we don't actually learn that much about her, right? Because the movie, like, jumps immediately into the plot or, like, what the gimmick of the movie is. And it just kind of stays at that for a huge bulk of the movie.
She plays this writer who every night a man comes and tries to break into her and her husband's home and harm them. Mm-hmm. Probably kill them. He seems to want to kill them. Yeah. Especially her, the husband points out at the beginning. He especially wants to get her.
Yeah.
So that's the premise. And like, how does this man come every night? Why is this man coming every night?
What adds to the mystery is that the husband is fully aware of this. And he's like, oh, that's the man that's here to try to kill us. He breaks into our house. So
by the way, very intriguing line there. Like that comes towards the beginning of the movie. And when he says that, he says, she sees a man standing outside, and she's all upset, and she's like, someone's trying to break in. She goes to wake her husband, and he says, oh yeah, that's the guy who comes every night to try to kill us. And that hooked me right away. I was really intrigued.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's weird because, like, what the movie ends up becoming, that line doesn't really make a lot of sense, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
So, maybe we should explain what happens. I mean, that's kind of the thing, is that is what happens for like 40 minutes of the movie, maybe? 40 minutes of the movie is she's in her house and her husband leaves her like pretty much like right away.
After the first night, the first attack.
Yeah, she goes to get answers from him. She's like, what is going on? Like, why is there a guy that comes into our house every night? Well, why aren't you doing anything about it? What are we supposed to do? And
he seems to know that this guy comes all the time, but she doesn't. Which I never understood that, by the way.
Right. That's what I'm kind of getting at, is like, wait, how come she doesn't know about this? Because of what the movie ends up being, right? So,
well, I've heard this called a time loop movie, but I don't think it is.
I don't think, no. This movie, I don't think, has anything to do with time travel. I think this movie is like, very much like, this is a metaphor for something. So you have these sequences where this guy breaks into the house, and there's like struggle, but they're not drawn out. She resolves these struggles pretty quickly, and she kills the guy a couple of times. You know, she's able to beat him up a few times, but each time she's like preparing for his arrival.
He leaves traces, but he disappears almost immediately after he's dispatched.
Right.
And in whatever way she gets rid of him, whether she kills him, knocks him out,
Yeah.
once she's kind of won the battle,
Yeah.
he disappears. And this is what I mean. How can I be scared? How can this be a horror movie when I know she's going to beat him every time? This guy must attack her 10, 15 times in the movie. Am I exaggerating?
No, not
yeah,
at all.
so you see this happen every time, and you know
Yeah.
he's never gets her. So, I mean, I couldn't be afraid, really. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't feel much fear during this movie.
What cues you into the metaphor is that she's talking to these cops, and the cops, like if it was like Groundhog Day or something where it was the same day over and over again, the cops would make some kind of point of like, oh, wait, you've called us before? Like, this is the first time we're hearing about it. But there's never a scene like that. It's like the cops always treat it like they talked to her the previous day. And what's frustrating...
And they did.
Yeah.
There's no repeats here. The only repeat is the guy comes every night.
Yeah, and the cops seem to be ineffective.
Yes.
Right? Like, the cops just, like, they're like, oh, we'll station some men outside, or, you know, we'll up our patrols, but then nothing happens. Like, you'd think by the second time the guy comes, they'd be like, okay, we're going to relocate you, or we're going to have someone in the house waiting for him. Mm-hmm. There's not that much to the movie, right? So I think we can just kind of jump to what the message is, because that's what I really wanted to talk to you about. Okay, so what do you think the movie's message is?
I feel pretty certain about what the movie's message is, which is that women are constantly being held down in life by men. And a lot of it is about the violence women experience at men's hands, but also like gaslighting, them not listening, them not taking women seriously.
Okay, so it's
a lot of commentary. I'm sure this movie came about because of the Me Too movement. It probably wouldn't have been greenlit without that.
Yeah, and honestly, that did kind of make me think that's why Shudder had it as like their main movie.
It's topical. It's topical, yeah. And I like this kind of topic. I really liked another movie with this sort of background, which is Promising Young Woman. I really liked that movie. This one I didn't like so much.
I thought, like, because when we were watching it, we sort of maybe assumed that she had been raped at one point. Because in the very beginning of the movie...
At least attacked.
Yeah.
At least attempt of something.
In the very beginning of the movie, there's a sequence where she's going to get into her car in a parking garage. It's in the middle of the day, but it's a desolate parking garage. And she hears a woman scream. And you just kind of wonder what's going on here, and cuts to the next scene. And so later on in the movie, one of the detectives says, you know, well, I think maybe this started around the time that you
were attacked in the parking garage.
You were attacked in the parking garage.
Which we never see that scene, really.
Right. So the way that I took it was that she had this traumatic experience, whether she was raped or just attacked. Like maybe she was attacked and the guy...
robbed.
Right. There's two things, right? Because the title of the movie is Lucky. And you were implying that lucky is like the phrase that people say to people that are raped, like, oh, you were lucky that you were just raped, you could have been killed.
You're lucky to be alive. You're lucky he didn't do more.
Right.
I think it's a phrase women commonly hear when they're victims.
Right. And you know, it could be that, and I think that probably is what it is. Or otherwise, maybe it's lucky that, like, she was able to fend him off, and she was able to get away from him, right?
It's all of it. It's a title with, like, multiple meanings, because there's also a scene where her book editor tells her, oh, they're going to sign you up for another book, or they want you to write another book, the publishers. And she's like kind of not feeling it. She has all these personal problems going on, and he says, come on, you're lucky they want to work with you. And she takes that moment, and she is insulted, and she gives this little speech, an important speech considering the topic of the movie, about how she's not lucky. She like worked her ass off to get here. It's not luck, you know, it's hard work. Yeah. So I think the title Lucky refers to multiple things. Yeah.
It's the thing is, it's unclear, right? Because there's never this like little moment that shows that initial attack in the garage.
It's unclear maybe what happened initially, but I don't think that's important.
Right. Because so much of the movie is the fact that it's metaphorical. Because essentially what happens is, after she's fought this guy off multiple times, it cuts to her being in that garage, and she runs into her friend who's like her like publicist, like someone that helps her promote her books and stuff. And she's now being attacked by her own version of the guy. And they have this dialogue where the friend's like, "What do I do? What do I do? Like, this is just starting to happen to me." And May, the main character, says, you have to fight him off just like every single day, right? It's just like metaphor, like right in your face.
Right, and they say this several times throughout the movie. That's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. You just have to deal with it. Her husband says it to her first, which is confusing in the beginning, but the movie starts to like kind of hit you over the head with it, that this is just the way it is. This is the world we live in. Men are constantly a problem for women, and we just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Only they presented it in this movie as a stalker. Basically, the metaphor, the idea of men holding women back or holding them down or causing problems for them is presented in the form of a stalker who comes to your house. That's how they sold it as a horror movie, and it's kind of like, I think, a clever, fun concept. It's not that I have a problem with the message. I appreciate the message. I think they have more films maybe under their belt coming, but I think they need a better budget and to hire better actors, and that's how I felt about it. I wish it had been a better film. It felt like a Lifetime movie to me, although the concept is more highbrow.
I know. Look, I kind of agree with you on a few of those points. It's the execution of it.
Which is important. It's everything. I want interesting characters. I want charismatic performers. I want inspired directing, It didn't have those things. It did have a good idea, and it did surprise me. There was that mystery of what's going on, and I was hooked. I wanted to find out what was going on.
Right.
It's just the way it was done.
There is like, what's going on, first 10 minutes, right? What's going on? What is this situation? Why is there a guy breaking into your house every night? What is going on?
It's intriguing.
First 10 minutes. Then the repeated sequence, and then finally, it's a metaphor. And there's a huge gulf in between. And, I found myself losing my interest in it. The cops allude to the idea that she might have gotten into like physical altercations with her husband, that he might be abusive. And then later on, we learn out that she cheated on her husband too at one point, right? And so she has this guilt about that situation. And she asks her friend, does she deserve this? Does she deserve this like constant attacking from this guy? And so what I liked about that, I did actually like that part, because I liked the idea of that we're being attacked by our own kind of personal demons, and they hurt the people around us, because this guy attacks the people that she loves eventually too, right? And I just like the idea that like this is a constant problem that we face on a daily basis. It's extra hard at night too. That's when he attacks at night. She's a writer, and so like it could be a metaphor for like having to be a writer and have to like put out a book, and like the struggle of writing on a blank page every single day. She does kind of allude to the idea that she went on these book tours for her first book, and that like she had to say the same things over and over again every time she did one of these speaking events. So I like the idea of like you have to face this thing constantly on a daily basis, and it like hurts the people around you, and it alienates you. I did like that.
Yeah, there is something about being isolated, and even the title of her book is called Go It Alone, I think. Is that the title?
Right, it is.
Which is kind of a ridiculous title, because I think any modern psychology will tell you that you need support and help to get over issues and problems. But anyway, she's written this book, which is really to her detriment, to go it alone, which she really, as a woman who has to deal with all of the problems in the world, I think the movie has a message that women should band together to combat misogyny, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that whole scene where all the women are in the parking garage getting attacked, and her friend's like, but she's getting attacked over there, shouldn't we help her? And the main character's like, no, I don't know her. She has to take care of herself. Right. And it's, it's the wrong choice. Right. I mean, everyone just keeps getting attacked instead of, Yeah. Anyway, so I think there's commentary to women also to help each other and support each other, because we're the ones who understand it best. Yeah. I mean, in this movie, men don't help them. Men do not help them at all. No. I mean, that's what I mean. It's a little too. They hit you over the head with it. It's a little much, and I don't think all men are bad, obviously, but in this movie, they kind of are. They're useless.
Yeah, they're useless or they're this relentless killer, right? Or killers.
Yeah.
So one thing that I was kind of surprised that Sherry didn't pick up on right away, no offense, was that the killer always had the same weapon that May had, right? At one point she has like a metal bat. He has a metal bat. At one point she has a hammer. He has a hammer. Once I made that connection, I was like, oh, okay, this is a metaphor. But, you know...
Why does that mean it's a metaphor? Because it's herself reflecting back?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So, I mean, like, two clear signs it's a metaphor right away is the ineptitude of the cops and the fact that he always had the same kind of weapon as her. The end of the movie, I was going to ask you because I felt like it was kind of vague. I didn't really understand it. Like, he always has the same weapons as her, right? And there's this one piece of glass that's been sitting on her, like, side table in her living room.
Yeah, this important piece of glass.
And it's like Chekhov's gun.
It keeps coming up.
Right, where it's like in the beginning, like she says, oh, someone could get hurt by this. You know, she says to her husband, and the husband does this like kind of look like someone could, you know? And, right? And then so at the very end, she takes the glass and she stabs the killer in the neck, but they both kind of fall in the same position. And it's like, did she kill herself? Is that the end of the movie? Like, how'd you take that?
No, I didn't take it that way.
So what just happened? Then she just killed him yet again?
It's gonna happen every day.
So you didn't take it that, like, she couldn't take it anymore and she killed herself. You didn't take that?
No. Why did you think? What was she stabbed at that point?
No, that was the whole thing because I thought that like
then
maybe.
Why would she have killed herself?
Well, that's what I thought. I kept looking for like, oh, is it going to show blood squirting out of her neck now because she just did that? Because I felt like it was like Chekhov's gun, right? You know Chekhov's gun?
No, I don't.
Okay, cool. Chekhov's gun. So the playwright Chekhov, right?
Yes.
He had this rule that we always quote, which is like, if there's a gun hanging on the mantelpiece in Act 1, the gun needs to
get used
by Act 3.
Okay.
So, like, they kept referencing this piece of glass. Oh, it's gonna hurt somebody. So it's like, maybe it's her considering using that to kill herself. She kills him. She's really killing herself.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Like, that piece of glass had to be important. But did you notice that there were other images of glass cracking throughout? Like
glass
the dishes.
cracking, she has glass in her finger. Yeah.
Right, the window cracks at one point.
Yeah.
The dishes crack. To me, that was more like, okay, it's kind of deep. So let me try to get myself.
Deep.
Let me get myself together. Yes,
it's
it's like
we're drinking our wines. It's Friday night. I got my chest hair out. We're ready to fucking roll, man. Come on.
And then it also reminded me of the Babadook, which is another metaphor movie. And I've heard It Follows also is a metaphor movie. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, for like sex or like teenage sex and
it's like
STDs.
I had heard that the metaphor of the monster or whatever is attacking them in the movie is like a loss of innocence.
Sure.
So it is related to sex. Anyway, in the Babadook, I always took it that it's a metaphor for depression. Did you see that?
With you, I sure did.
What did you think it was?
It was like depression because her husband died in a car accident.
Right, she had all this depression and anxiety, and the monster is depression and anxiety, right?
Yeah, and also like having to raise the kid by herself.
Yeah, so little did you know you're going to get spoilers for like 3 movies here. But anyway, I think The Babadook is a much better metaphor movie.
Yeah.
Like, it actually is scary. And they don't hit you over the head with things, and you really have to figure things out for yourself. And
that's a very good point.
And I haven't seen It Follows, but I hear it's excellent and very scary.
Right.
So if you are into this kind of thing, I would recommend those movies maybe more than this.
Like you want to keep the trappings of the horror movie. You want it to be suspenseful, and then you reveal the metaphor at the very end. Like it shouldn't be that like. You're just waiting for that. Like, come on, can you just reveal what it really is? Like, because
it just wasn't scary.
Right.
I'm kind of offended that they're using the scary movie trappings to sell this. Maybe because I respect horror movies, I want to genuinely be afraid.
As you guys can see, like we think there's a lot of potential from the filmmakers and from the idea of this movie, but ultimately we just didn't enjoy it. Shudder. Like, if you ever look at my LassoCast stuff, we are huge fans of Shudder, and, we will always give the stuff that they put out a chance. That's it for today. Shari and I, we promised you, we made a promise a long time ago that we were going to review Fargo for our Snowbound event. Well, you know what? We actually are going to do Fargo pretty soon. We are. We're going to tape it like this week, and it's going to go up real soon. So there's Fargo. But if you guys aren't watching on Tuesday nights, our daughter Pepper and I have been reviewing Superman and Lois, the TV show. We've been doing a live streaming. And Brian and I just finished our WandaVision reviews, but we are going to be talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier once that premieres. Not this following Friday, but the next Friday. All right, so there's always content on the Anchorpete channel. And if you want to hear talk about Shudder movies and stuff, you can also check out my other channel, The Lasercast. And we will see you guys with one more Snowbound episode when we talk about Fargo.